John Eastman, the lawyer who helped Donald Trump mastermind his plot to overturn the 2020 election results, was searched by the FBI. As we've been discussing ever since the January 6th hearings began, there's this big question around, will Donald Trump be held criminally responsible for the actions he took in 2020 and the beginning of 2021 to keep himself in power, even though he clearly had lost the 2020 election? And I'll just quickly summarize what I've said before. Of course, I only want him to be held criminally responsible if enough evidence can be shown that he broke certain laws. And here's the evidence to show it, of course. But it looks like from all of my analysis, he did violate the law. He very clearly was notified time and time again that his beliefs about the 2020 election being fraudulent weren't true. He was made aware of that multiple times by people close to him. And yet he kept on going with a plot to try to keep himself in power, deny the lawful election results, and put our entire democracy into peril in a very, very serious way. So with that being front of mind, of course, one of the things that happens in almost any investigation into someone larger like a Donald Trump, who is super significant in the political realm, he's a former president, you gotta make sure you have all the proper evidence if you're going to go after him. Well, a lot of times when that's the case, you go after the small people. As we all know how criminal investigations work, you get them to flip all the way up to the big person. So if we are hoping Trump will be held responsible in a criminal manner, then what we'd expect to see is people around him who helped him work on this plot to keep him in power be investigated, indicted, and that would be the first sign that something more serious is going on behind the scenes in some sort of investigation into Donald Trump. And that is exactly what we've gotten with this news. The FBI seized the phone of former President Donald Trump's election attorney, John Eastman, last week, according to a new court filing from the lawyer. Eastman disclosed the search and seizure in federal court in a lawsuit that he filed in New Mexico on Monday, calling it improper. So if you forgot, John Eastman has been getting brought up a lot in these January 6th hearings. He seemed to be one of Trump's, if not Trump's top person who is pushing this bizarre legal theory that Trump should call the election fraudulent, have Mike Pence deny the election results, possibly recognize alternate slates of electors, give it back to the states, and just cause this constitutional crisis. So John Eastman was the head guy on a lot of those theories, the one feeding Trump all of these lies. And that guy, according to his own filing in federal court, is saying, I was searched by the FBI. There is so much going on right now. The Roe v. Wade news, all this January 6th stuff, stories coming out every which way. But just sometimes you got to take a moment to realize how insane of a point in history we are at right now. We have a close ally of a former president getting investigated, getting searched by the FBI. They seized his phone, are looking into it to see if he did criminal actions in his attempt to keep Trump in power. That is unbelievable. And I know we kind of want to train ourselves to not get too excited for stuff, because so rarely with someone as powerful as Donald Trump and the people around him, you can't expect them to be held accountable in the ways that they should. So I totally get the tendency to kind of just be like, okay, well, yeah, a lot of people have been investigated around Donald Trump and nothing's ever happened. And I'm not saying that it's 100% Trump's going to be prosecuted. It's probably more likely that he's not. But it is 100% groundbreaking that the person the January 6th hearings has focused a lot of time on, which is this John Eastman, a lawyer that was scheming with Trump to try to help Trump stay in power, is being investigated by the FBI. That's incredible. And what it does show is people in the federal government, the Justice Department, are looking into the possible criminal behavior of a lot of these people. And if they're looking into John Eastman, you know that's a step in the process of getting to Trump. Reading a little bit more about this, about 6 federal investigators approached the right-wing lawyer in New Mexico when he was exiting a restaurant after dinner with his wife and a friend, according to the court filings. Agents were able to get access to Eastman's email accounts on his iPhone 12 Pro, the filings said. So they're trying to get access to the communication records of John Eastman to see what did he know, when did he know it, what was he planning, who was he planning it with. And that could be the evidence that brings some of these people, including him and possibly Donald Trump, to justice. And I just want to reiterate one more time why I'm so serious on this particular issue. I really do know that if you're on the right, you see commentators like myself talking about this subject and you think, oh my gosh, they're so hyperbolic. they're going crazy just because they hate Trump. It is so important. We have to hold Trump and the people who enabled him accountable, specifically in relation to his attempt to stay in power. Otherwise, we are setting a precedent where presidents can completely go against our democracy, try to keep themselves in power, reject the lawful election results, and get away with it. That's not something that a healthy democracy can allow. So of course, you got to have the evidence. You got to make sure it's clear which laws he violated. If somehow it's the case that he didn't, then he shouldn't be held accountable. But it looks like he definitely did. And so at least he needs to be seriously investigated for it, which based on this, it looks like he is being. And hopefully there needs to be some ultimate justice, because nothing is more important in a country that has a somewhat democratic system than maintaining the integrity of that democracy. And absolutely nothing deteriorates the integrity of that democracy more than a president rejecting the election results and trying to plot with someone like John Eastman to keep himself in power. A last little note on this, quote, the search and seizure occurred the same day that federal agents raided the home of Jeffery Clark, the former Justice Department lawyer sympathetic to Trump's conspiracies of election fraud. This is clearly one part of a multifaceted investigation that's going on into kind of all of the people around Trump who were helping him throughout this process. Absolutely incredible. You hope that it's going to keep going in this direction, the proper things are going to be uncovered, and then we'll get some sort of accountability for the horrible things that were attempted in 2020. It luckily didn't work, but as I keep saying, if it didn't work in 2020 and they get back in power in the future, now they know what caused it not to work and they can try it again, and maybe next time we won't be so lucky. So this has nothing to do with you being conservative or liberal. This has to do with you being either pro-democracy or anti-democracy. Do you want us to have a system where the people's voices are heard and respected, or people can just do whatever possible to keep themselves in power regardless of the lawful election results and the lawful election processes that we have set up? Because again, if you believe that there's election fraud, what do? You go through the legal system. That's what Trump's lawyers did. It didn't work for him, and yet still he attempted to stay in power. So initially, if you heard some false claims and you thought maybe there was election fraud, once that was proven to be false, Trump was told that many, many times. He had his chance to try to prove it in front of the judicial system, and it wasn't found to be something that happened in any significant way in this election that could have swayed it. So at that point, you concede and you leave. But that's not what Trump did, and that is a massive threat to the somehow still surviving system that we have right now. So yes, even though Trump is a political individual now, wanting to hold him accountable for possible criminal actions that he took is not just Trump derangement syndrome. It's not over politicizing the criminal justice system. No, evidence has been revealed showing that possible criminal actions were taken by Trump to stay in power, and that's all we're going after. So this, John Eastman having his phone seized, is a good step in that direction.